'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back again. We're talking about some over-harvesting of Atlantic menhaden in Virginia, Chesapeake area. And this came about, one of our members, Jacob Belts, give old Jacob a shout out. We've emailed quite a bit about the issues that recreational fishermen, like you probably listen to this podcast, are dealing with. We spent a lot of time talking about issues in Florida. We've hit Texas. We've talked about some of the gill netting in the Carolinas and some lawsuits there. And Jacob had introduced me to Phil here, Zalesack. Hopefully I'm not butchering the last name there, Phil. But Phil sent me a couple articles and some things where he is getting involved and even has a nonprofit and is suing an organization or a state. And so I was like, all right, we got to bring Phil on and talk about this. Sadly, there's a lot of money involved and there's politics involved, but end of the day, we're destroying our fisheries up there, or not we are. I mean, as a society and some of these big corporations, it's so sad. And when you hear some of the stats that Phil is going to share and what has been documented, it is I think Phil's grandson say it's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever that we're doing this to our fisheries. So without further ado, Phil, welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, audience. Again, my name is Phil Zalzak. You didn't butcher my name. It's been Americanized. I guess if we were in the Czech Republic, it'd be Zalesek, but don't worry about it, as they say, So what I wanted to talk about a little bit is an organization I'm president of. It's an all-volunteer, nobody gets any money, nonprofit corporation established in the state of Maryland. And its mission is to protect the fisheries in the state of Maryland. Well, the state of Maryland shares the Chesapeake Bay with the state of Virginia. So we're very much interested in what occurs in the Chesapeake Bay and just outside the Chesapeake Bay, especially when it comes to forage fish. Now, for you people who like to read books about fishing, there's a very important book, and it's called The Most Important Fish in the Sea. And it's written by H. Bruce Franklin. And it's about Atlantic menhaden. And the reason they're the most important fish in the sea is because they're a very important forage fish for, in the state of Maryland, striped bass. We catch bluefish, weak fish. And then most recently, we've gotten some most recent scientific research from the College of William and Mary in Virginia, where they determined that the osprey are highly dependent on Atlantic menhaden for their survival too. All right, so what can we do about it? I mean, right now, the Virginia has been allocated 750 million fish to take out of their waters. They can take 250 million of these Atlantic menhaden. Well, by the way, they're about the size of your hand. They're about a half a pound each, about 0.46 pounds to be specific. So they're taking 250 million fish out of the Chesapeake Bay, 250 million, and then a 500 million right outside the Chesapeake Bay.
And who's they? When you say they, where are these? Okay, who's taking this?
All right, this is the reduction fishery. There's a company called Omega Protein, and they're the last industrial reduction fishery on the Atlantic coast, and they are authorized to do this by the Virginia Marine Resources Commission. What are they? They're a bureaucracy inside the state of Virginia which manages the fisheries, and they are not doing their job. All right, so they have some control over this. I mean, they see this going on. They've been made aware of everything, but they do nothing. And so after, numerous lobbying efforts in the state of Virginia legislature, Uh, I just said, well, it's time to sue the bastards, to be brutally honest. So I started working on this last year. Uh, the law firm representing the Southern Maryland Recreational Fishing Organization is the Chesapeake Legal Alliance. The executive director is David Reed. David Reed is an avid fisherman and hunter. This is in his blood. And so we filed a suit against the Virginia Marine Resources Commission on May 10th. And you all know that the legal process is very, very slow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did have a hearing with the judge, Judge Campbell, in Richmond, Virginia. I believe it was the 7th of September. And he basically heard a motion from the Assistant Attorney General of Virginia to dismiss the case. Well, it was kind of interesting because Judge Campbell's dad was a submariner in World War II on the USS Pogey. Well, that's another word for Menhaden. So he actually started out the hearing like that without even listening to either David Reed, our lawyer, or the Assistant Attorney General. So with that introduction, I said, well, this guy might actually look into it. I felt pretty good about it. So the case went on. I guess we were there about an hour or so. And he kept asking the Assistant Attorney General a lot of questions, which made me feel good. And basically, what our lawsuit says is that the Virginia Marine Resources Commission violated the law in two ways. First of all, they're supposed to listen to the public on what their concerns are regarding fishery laws from October 1st to December 31st and make a decision about what they're going to do about it for the next year. So I went to the October meeting last fall. I went to the December meeting, early winter, if you will, and made the testimony. And by law, their own Virginia law, they were supposed to take all this information into consideration and make a decision about what they were going to do in 2023. They did not. They called an emergency meeting in February because the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission, which is the federal entity that controls what happens on the Atlantic coast, up the Virginia allocation. So what they wanted to do, they wanted to harvest a little more fish out of the Chesapeake Bay and Virginia waters just outside the bay. Well, they were already in compliance with the law where they were stuck, if you will, at only taking, what their current allocation was. And so, there was no reason for them to have an emergency meeting and to have an emergency meeting without the public being involved. All right, so they violated the law there. They made a decision outside of the window when they were supposed to. And the other law that they violated was, and I don't want to get into the details of what the title of the law is, but basically it says, hey, when you change a fishery regulation, you're supposed to take in consideration recreational fishing, its impact on the restaurant industry. You're supposed to use the latest science in terms of biological science, sociological science, and all these things that they never took into consideration. And oh, by the way, you're not supposed to bias your allocation towards any particular company. Well, they violated all of those. So I'm hopeful that Judge Campbell will be making a decision here shortly, and then we'll move on. But that's kind of where we are right now. So our lawyer, David Reed of, again, the Chesapeake Legal Alliance, is working in two directions. One direction is we win this case. Then we have to bring pressure on the Virginia Marine Resources Commission to comply with what the judge said. That won't be quick. I fully expect the Virginia Marine Resources Commission to delay. And however, though, October's not far away. There'll be testimony again before the Virginia Marine Resources Commission in October. we got a coalition, if you will, in Virginia and Maryland who are going to fight against them. There'll also be another meeting in December. And by law, they will need to make a decision by the end of this year before they can make a decision on what the fishing regulations are going to be in 2024. I hope that was not too complicated, but I'll just leave it to you, Joe.
Yeah, so I'll summarize. And I think there's probably some people that might not even know what reduction fishing is. So to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially they're taking things like menhaden and reducing it into oils, the things that you see in supplements or GNC or the aisle of your pharmacy where you see fish oils and extracts, et cetera. Is that kind of summarizing what they're doing with these fish?
Right, and they also take the carcass, if you will, and they go to salmon farms around the world so that these salmon farms can have fish to provide for restaurants around the world.
Got it.
Now, here's another thing, and not that, again, this is not a suit against omega protein. Omega protein is only doing what the Virginia Marine Resources Commission does. And their focus is to reduce costs as much as they possibly can. So when they take a look at their allocation of, I think it's 156,000 metric tons out of Virginia waters, they're going to take 51,000 metric tons out of Chesapeake Bay first, because that's what their current maximum limit is. So they'll spend their time from May 1st through the summer making sure they get that 51,000 metric tons out. Now, they're having a little problem this year. If you go to a Facebook page called Menhaden, Little Fish, Big Deal, they're having trouble finding Atlantic menhaden in the Chesapeake Bay. Surprise, surprise. So they've already been off the coast of Delaware, New Jersey, and New York already looking for fish this year. Well, if there are billions and billions of fish in the Chesapeake Bay, why would you ever have to leave the Chesapeake Bay? Well, you wouldn't. All right, so what does the latest science says? All right, so we've got Dr. Brian Watts from the College of William and Mary. And he's got 4 generations of graduate students have been studying the value of Atlantic menhaden to osprey. And basically what he said was that there's so few Atlantic menhaden in the lower portion of the Chesapeake Bay that's threatening the survival of osprey, which live in the southern portion of the Chesapeake Bay. And to give you kind of a metric here, there's supposed to be 1.15 chicks per active nest for the osprey birds to continue as they are from a survivability standpoint. We're at less than 0.1.
Wow.
We are less than 0.1. Now, the criticism, well, this has not been documented and science reviewed by peers. Well, it has now. In April 20th this year, Michael Academia, who got his master's from William and Mary, published that under peer review and basically documented what the disaster has been. Now, here's another piece of information. This isn't even recent science. The Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission, that's the federal bureaucracy, which answers to the U.S. Commerce Department. Anyway, they had this thing called an ecological reference point assessment. And this was published in January of 2020. So we're talking over 3 years ago, right? So what does this says? It says that striped bass, bluefish, and weakfish are dependent on Atlantic menhaden for their survival. And they even got a pretty diagram on page 375, if you want to take a look at this. And it says there's a direct relationship between the mortality rate of Atlantic menhaden and striped bass. So, and it's been devastating. I sent Joe a paper which I wrote, and you can see what the what the impact has been on recreational fishing and commercial fishing in the Chesapeake Bay. Now, you might say, well, who are members of the Southern Maryland Recreational Fishing Organization? Well, let's see. Charter captains from Virginia Beach. How's that? How about property owners on the Eastern Shore in Virginia who have rental property down there who are having trouble renting their property because of washed up redfish on their beach, or even dead Atlantic menhaden washed up on their beach? Now, most of the members are from Maryland. We got over a dozen Virginia members. We got a member from D.C. and a member from Delaware right now. I just had, and I don't give people's names out. I just had a member join from Virginia Beach as a lifetime member. Lifetime member is like $250 if you want to get to the cause. And he is very much concerned about what's occurring in the Chesapeake Bay. Now, I'm a geek. I want you to know I'm an engineer by degree. That's how I made my living. I didn't really stand a chance. My dad was a chemist. My older brother was a physicist who graduated from Johns Hopkins University. Whenever I get his PhD from George Mason, I'm an electrical engineer. My little brother's an electrical engineer. So we are certified geeks. We are data-driven. And we've learned very quickly that if you tell the people the truth, sometimes they really get angry with you because they don't like the truth. And that has been my experience going through this whole process. I have absolutely given up on the legislatures. I firmly believe that America has the best politicians that money can buy. So I decided to go going the suit route. I've tried both legislatures, Maryland and Virginia. I've tried to work through the chain of command to our current governor, getting nowhere. So I am down to a lawsuit. All right, so how are you going to win this thing, Phil? Well, hopefully we can win in Virginia court and it'll all be over, but we'll see. So that's kind of the state route. The federal route is to go to this bureaucracy called the Atlantic State Marine Fishery Commission and ask them to make a motion to end all industrial reduction fishing in Virginia waters. I have no interest in shutting down omega protein. I just want you to get three nautical miles off the East Coast, fish to the east of the exclusive economic zone, so you're not taking forage fish away from striped bass, bluefish, weak fish, and most recently the osprey is documented by 50 years of scientific research by the College of William and Mary. And with that, I've probably done my thing, I think.
No, that's good. I mean, what really got my attention reading through this document that you sent over is how this impacts recreational anglers and the commercial anglers. So I'm just reading it here. This reduction fishery, as you said, they've been given 750 million fish that they can take out. And as you know, when you're using these nets, if you haven't seen what they do, they got spotter planes essentially looking for all these schools, and they're going in there with chips and massive seine nets. Based on how much they're able to take, their bycatch of striped bass. This is for us, a lot of us recreational anglers, this is kind of about the striped bass and bluefish too, and weakfish. But the striped bass is obviously a very important species up there. That means that if they just had 0.2% of the total fish caught by the reduction industry, they're killing on bycatch alone. They kill more striped bass than is being harvested by the striped bass commercial fishermen in the entire Chesapeake. So this one company, and your point's right, Phil, they haven't broken any rules. They're just doing what the state is enabled them to do, which is take a ton more fish than they probably should, to the point they're having trouble finding it now because nothing lasts forever. No resource does. But that hit me. I was like, holy smokes, their bycatch alone that they're accidentally catching in their nets is bigger than the entire commercial fishing industry for striped bass in that same area. That's nuts. Like, that's really, really nuts.
And their own spotter pilot, there was also a disaster regarding redfish where 12,000 pounds washed up on the shores in Virginia. The spotter pilot didn't see the redfish. The ship that was in the area that was harvesting these fish didn't see the redfish. So in my mind, they can't see the recreational fishing going on where they're trying to feed on these menhaden. They can't see them themselves, so they don't even know. So why not just get them out of the Chesapeake Bay, get them off the 3 miles off the coast, and let them catch all the fish they want out in the exclusive economic zone, and let the forage fish come in and feed the critical recreational fish. Again, the striped bass is our Maryland state fish, and they devastated. Now, here's another interesting thing about striped bass. The ocean-going striped bass, they originate as spawn. Over 60% of them are from spawn in the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries. So when you destroy the fish, the striped bass in the Chesapeake Bay, you're actually impacting the entire coast. Mm-hmm. Now, here's another thing. Think about this. If you take a look at data that was collected, I think it was like 2016, and they're looking at the relative strength of what the impact of the recreational fishing of striped bass versus the commercial industry. It was $800 million for Maryland alone for recreational, and much less for commercial. Now, and let me go look at my paper reel here before I put my foot in my mouth, for inaccurate stuff. But there's a real economic impact here. This is what I wanted to talk to about. It's okay. So, like for Maryland and Virginia, the recreational GDP associated with the striped bass industry was almost $1 billion, $909 million. Okay. Wow. And that was over 11,000 jobs. The commercial GDP for striped bass was 29 million, and the commercial jobs associated with that were 968. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant difference there. It says, from a dollar standpoint, the economic impact of striped bass recreational fishing was over 31 times more significant than the commercial fishing. All right, so if I was at the U.S. Commerce Department, I'd be a little concerned about that, wouldn't you? Or even in the state of Maryland, I'd be concerned about that, or Virginia.
Absolutely.
From a job standpoint, the economic impact of striped bass recreational fishing was 12 times more than the commercial fishing. So, I don't know. I think that kind of summarizes the economic impact. So what am I waiting for right now? I'm waiting for a decision from Judge Campbell, and I'm waiting for an opportunity to speak before the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission in October. And that's kind of where we are right now.
That's good. So what could residents of Virginia, Maryland, or anyone really, what could they be doing? How do you get involved? How do you create more awareness about these issues? Because I'm hearing from people saying it's just not like it used to be all over the place, but in particular for striped bass in that area in the Chesapeake, I'm sure you haven't met anyone who says, oh man, this is the best fishing I remember in years. It seems like it gets worse and worse because of this most important fish in the sea is continuing to just be on the decline. How do people get involved to help out?
Well, okay, from a direct standpoint, if someone wanted to make a contribution to the lawsuit, they could do that. And a lot of money's coming in, $100 at a time. Money could be sent directly to the Chesapeake Legal Alliance. Because I don't want a nickel of it. I don't want one penny of it coming through the Southern Maryland Recreational Fishing Organization for a number of reasons. I don't want to be accused of just trying to raise money based on a disaster. And two, I don't want to do that to my treasurer. I would rather the money go directly to the law firm. That's one thing they could do. They can call, if you live in Maryland, call the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and say, we support this lawsuit. I want the Maryland delegation to the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission to put forth a motion to end reduction fishing of Atlantic menhaden in Virginia waters. They could do that. If you live in Virginia, you could call your Virginia Marine Resources Commission and say, we want you to end reduction fishing in Virginia waters, in the Chesapeake Bay and just outside the Chesapeake Bay, and limit reduction fishing, industrial fishing using aircraft and large ships, and put them out east of the exclusive economic zone. Those are three things that could happen from two different groups. But I would just leave it there. I can't think of anything else to do. You can put money directly into it. Again, I don't want a penny of it. And then contact your Virginia Marine Resources Commission in Virginia, if you live in Virginia, or contact the Maryland Department of Natural Resources in Maryland.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, my friend. Well, thank you for standing up for recreational anglers and just citizens in general. As you and I talked offline, that book that I read about the Hudson River, the river keepers, it was shocking to hear what goes on behind the scenes. You made a perfect example of all of a sudden some emergency meeting happens. No one's involved except, meaning no citizens and recreational anglers, no residents were involved. It was just stuff that happens behind the scenes. No one's told, no one's notified. And many times they kind of think they're going to get away with it, if you will. And until people like you stand up, and sadly, these days to get anything done, you got to sue people and or states and organizations. So thank you for doing that. I know it's probably disheartening sometimes and frustrating how long things take, and how many times they can kind of block you and just push things off, hoping you give up. But I would encourage you to keep fighting the fight, and anyone else that can get involved, that would be awesome.
Well, if this fight will continue, if we get a negative response from Judge Campbell, we'll appeal it immediately. We're ready to do that. And as far as I'm concerned, now I'm only a kid of 75, so I'm going to hang in for another 75 years, and I'm going to be working this till I pull back the big green rug. So let your listeners know the fight has just begun. Okay,
that's good stuff. Cool. I appreciate you, Phil, and everyone. And what is your website? The SMRFO?
Yeah, it's smrfo.org.
Okay, got it.
So that's the website. But this is what we do. The coalition, which is the Coalition of Virginia and Maryland Fishermen. If you go to the Facebook site, Menhaden, Little Fish, Big Deal, I will post the lawsuit information. You can track omega protein ships and aircraft on a daily basis there, and you can express your opinion there. You do have to join, and we know that let's just say some of our opponents have joined, but anyway, you can get information directly there. That's the best way to do it. Or I post stuff on the Southern Maryland Recreational Fishing Organization's Facebook page. That's just called Southern Maryland Sport Fishing. And I'll post stuff, 3 or 4 times a month there, basically activities coming up or the status of the lawsuit or, stuff we do for the recreational fishing organizations or recreational fishing events in our area. So anyway, that's probably more than you can stand, but those are things you can do.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Phil, and thank you, Jacob, for setting this up. And you guys stay tuned for the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in